Hello, everyone, and welcome back into another episode of Conversations with Chris and Cameron. It's episode 61. I'm Chris Beesmore,
I'm Cameron Waddle.
and we have a lot to cover in this podcast episode since last week, since we recorded one. Of course, we couldn't get another one out after everything that has happened since last week with, several commits with Zoom Diallo. And then, of course, you also got Alex Wilkins committing to Kentucky. But we were both on vacation. I was in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and of course, you were in Chicago as well.
Yep. Yeah, the Chicago trip was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been waiting to get on here to hear about your Gatlinburg trip, but Chicago treated me well, and it was also we obviously had the good news of Alex Wilkins while I was in the city, but
Mhm.
I was able to avoid some of the doom and gloom that the
Yeah.
fan base has brought along. So that
Yeah.
also made it pretty nice.
Yeah, we did not sadly go to Sunline or Diner where you asked, but yeah, we mainly
Mm.
just went out for dinner. Like we ate breakfast and lunch, indoors were packed up like a sandwich or whatever. But we did try out Dick's Last Resort for the first time.
Oh,
And that was definitely an experience. I think like at first my girlfriend was just hungry because I could tell she was a little off, but I think once she got food and she was more like back to herself, she was just, a little hangry, but it was definitely a very like different experience compared to other restaurants, and of course I knew that going in, but I would definitely go back there again. It was definitely a little pricey whenever we went, but I would definitely go back there again with probably some bros or something.
yeah. Can you say what was on your hat, or is that's not safe to say on here?
No, I cannot definitely say that.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I figured that was probably the case, but yeah, they get kind of wild with those hats.
Yeah, our waiter, yeah, like I said, it was definitely a very interesting experience. But like I said, I would definitely go back there with my bros or whatever it might be, maybe a bachelor trip there.
Yeah, that's definitely that feels like the vibe for it. Like you just got to go with the guys and
Yeah.
and do it like that because yeah, it's quite the interesting place.
Yes, for sure. But we won't talk too much about our trips because we want to, of course, get into the podcast. But I just want to say quickly, Gatlinburg Sky Park is a place to go, though. If you all have never done that before, it was definitely a lot of fun. We spent probably like 5 hours up there, but like I said, a lot of fun. You can see, Gatlinburg, the city, and everything, and they have quite a few different hiking trails along with the sky bridge. So definitely a lot of fun.
Yeah, it sounded like you had a good time
Yeah.
and yeah, Chicago. I mean, I won't go into a deep dive. There's like one wild story I guess I could share. So I mean, we did all the touristy stuff, and it seemed like the guys on the trip had a good time. But there was one. So if you've never been to Chicago, there's like the architecture boat tour. So you kind of go through the city. They tell you about the buildings, the history of
Mhm.
Chicago, all the good stuff. So this dude got up at one point and he had a little jar, and there was like it looked like a powder or something in it. And I was like, he's got I was like, this is crazy. This dude's got on the boat. And so I just see him walk over and he walks to the edge of the boat. He starts to unscrew the lid and he starts dumping. And I was like, oh, those are ashes. Okay.
So,
Okay. Respect. Those are ashes going to Chicago River, whatever. And then the wind picks up because he's on the side of the boat and just ashes all over us. It just blows all
oh
over
no.
our group of guys. And I was like, what the heck was that? Like, this is
Uh,
crazy. And just, I mean, safe to say his wife was a little tore up about it. It was her mother. And yeah, it didn't go well. It was I don't know why he didn't go to the back of the boat. I think it's a learning lesson nonetheless, but it was unbelievable.
man.
I could not believe it.
I was like, what is this dude doing?
Yeah, he just walks inside the boat and it's just all
Yeah.
over us. And I was like, that didn't. There was more on us than in the water. It was
Oh
ridiculous.
no. That is awful.
Yeah.
And then one other quick thing I want to hit is I've never seen bears before. Whenever I've gone to Tennessee, whether it be Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge, Cookville, wherever, never seen them before. I've seen bears, of course, in real life in like a zoo or whatever. Never seen them though. I saw one the first day we got there near downtown Gatlinburg. It wasn't exactly downtown, maybe like a mile away from it, which was pretty cool. Like I said, never seen it before. Then the next day, my girlfriend and I were leaving to go to dinner, and our neighbors who are probably staying, vacation, Virgo, whatever it might be, some bear got into their car, actually got inside of it. I don't think it destroyed their car because we eventually saw their car like the next day. But it was crazy to see a bear that close to us, and of course also in somebody's car as well.
Yeah, no, he's a little bit smarter than what you want bears to be because that was crazy. When I saw that video, I was like, I don't even know like what you even do at that point. It's
Yeah.
that car is officially the bears if he wants it. Like it's
Yeah.
there's nothing you can do at that point. Uh, but yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's wild. It's always a good time to Gatlinburg because it's close enough that like it can be a few day trip and it doesn't feel like it's forever when you drive back. Same with Chicago. Like I think a lot of people being from Kentucky and being from this area, stuff like Chicago's a lot closer than I think people actually think it is.
hmm It's
And there's
like
just so
six
much to
hours, right?
do. Yeah, it was about five and a half for us. So I mean, people just got to get out, and if you even like remotely like sports, then Wrigley is gonna like take your breath away when you go. There's just, I will say, this is one of the moments that in recent years I've been the most proud of myself. So I've been to Chicago twice, gone up to the top of the Willis Tower both times, um, and they have the glass box that you can step out on. That's
hmm
the classic thing. Both times I had been up there, I said I'm gonna step on it. I'm terrified of heights. If you don't know that about me, then now you do.
Oh,
Uh, and both times I just my body would not let me step on it, and I just could not.
you
But
could
this
not.
time it's me, nine of the boys, and it's for my cousin's bachelor trip, and I was like, I have to do this. I have to go step on this glass, and I
hmm
did it. So I did it for two different pictures, got right back off, but I at least got out there for the pictures. So I was pretty proud of myself with that.
Yeah, well, I am very proud of you for sure. But let's actually finally get into the podcast. We've got a lot to cover about. We won't be really doomy and gloomy like other fans. Like we don't want to be a part of that. Like we want to try to be cheerful, uplifting, happy, like so many people on social media are, just being doom and gloom, being all sad, depressing, like Mark Pope is the worst head coach, worst recruit ever. Like this is the worst we've seen in Kentucky since Billy Gillespie, but we're going to be cheerful. And we're going to begin with talking about some big news to begin the podcast. If y'all don't know yet, Baylor transfer guard Tounde Yessoufou has officially entered the transfer portal, but he's also going to keep his name in the NBA draft. His main priority is, of course, for him to be drafted this upcoming year. Like, that's his goal. Like, I understand if he wants to get to the NBA and, you know, I wish him the best, but that was very big news because, like I said, 2 weeks ago, he announced that he would just be going to the NBA draft, and that's it. And then come Tuesday night, a few hours before the 11:59 p.m. deadline, Yesufu finally enters the portal. And this past year, he's a 6'5", 215-pound guard, but for his freshman year, he had nearly 18 points, 6 rebounds, and 1.5 assists per game. He shot pretty well from the field, 46.5%, and then he didn't have the greatest three-point shooting with only 29.3%, but he was shooting over 5 3-point attempts. Like if he's taking maybe 3 or 4 attempts, he's shooting maybe like 35% instead, but he had to just take a high volume because he was the main leading scorer for Baylor. And like I said, it'll be interesting to see where he ends up at. He has a do not contact right now, which means either usually two things. Either Tunde knows where he's going, or the other option is himself or his agent will reach out to the teams. Teams cannot reach out to them to begin contact. So right now, the early indication is though it's UCLA with the early lead. Who knows? Like Kentucky could potentially come in, but the two main teams that many people are hearing right now are UCLA and Kentucky, with of course UCLA with the early lead right now.
Yeah, this is the type of guy you make sure that you go and kind of back up the Brinks truck for it, especially at this point with where you're at with this offseason that Pope has had so far. Um, like I mean, you mentioned a few of the things about him. Like he's just an incredible player. His draft stock's lower than like what I thought it would even be. I know he didn't necessarily have the year that people thought efficiency wise, but he's still incredible. And like you said, his main goal is NBA draft. But if you're going and if you look at the mock drafts and stuff, like ESPN's most recent one had him going 30th. So if you're talking the money difference there from 30th to like what a college would pay him right now, it's
Yeah.
drastic the difference between those two. And the thing that like I think actually comes up a lot with these agents and stuff, and like I would have thought it would came in to play before the last 2 weeks, where like you said, like a couple weeks ago, he just said I'm just going to the draft or whatever. Um, like this is the type of guy that you compare. Like he might go 20 to 30 this year,
Hmm.
but if he has a good sophomore campaign, he's going like top five, top 10. Like he's in that range because of how
Yeah.
good of a player he is. Because next year's a lot weaker. Like this, it's a tough draft
Yeah.
to try to compete with. So this dude right here, like I said initially, one of my buddies that like he was like the first guy to text me about it. He was like, "Do you think there's a world where like what do you want to do like Fortune Day or whatever?" And I was like, honestly, I'd go to the links of like pulling out of the Stokes stuff
Yep.
because I think Stokes is going to be a better player. He's going to be a higher draft pick, and he probably will end up having a better NBA career. But I'm so like tired of all the drama and stuff. It's
Hmm.
like if you can go and you can take the money that you were going to pay Stokes and just go get Tounde, then like
Yeah.
not that you're in the exact same boat, but you're safer than what like
Hmm.
it's similar to what the Sebastian Reinchick and Donnie Freeman
Donnie
situation
Freeman.
is like. You can just go get one and you can pay
Hmm.
Tunde whatever it is, 6 mil. I don't care what the number is. You can
Hmm.
go get that and have a certain wing that's going to be incredible next year for you,
Hmm.
and an Ortega Owe replacement. I think that's the
Yeah.
thing that probably intrigues most of the fan base. It's like it's Ortega Owe with like arguably a better jump shot and a more
Hmm.
reliable jump shot going into next year with what he would have around him. So I just think
Yeah.
he's like that level of talent that you've just got to do all that you can. And it's, I
Hmm.
mean, it was one of those guys where you expect right towards the end of the deadline to have big names enter. I wasn't
Hmm.
expecting it because I just
Yeah.
thought he was just draft and that was going to be that. But here
Hmm.
we are. And like you said, UCLA and Kentucky are the early teams. I saw Trilly put that out. I didn't know if anybody else did, but Trilly, I mean, I don't really know what to even trust with him anymore because his stuff is like he's kind of all over the place with Kentucky stuff. Like he's like betting like 500 to me. I don't know. So um, we'll see.
Yeah.
But it seems like UCLA is definitely, certainly one of those top teams in the mix.
Yeah, and of course, like people are saying, if Mark Pope loses, the battle to Mick Cronin, to UCLA, I'm like, well, if he loses it, it's probably because it's not really about money. It's more so that Tounde Yessoufou just wants to return back home. Like he is not really from California. I think he's actually from Africa. I could be wrong about that. I know he's from a different country, but he came over from the different country to the U.S. and of course, he's been living in California for majority of his life. But, you know, like Mark Pope would not be losing out Tunde Yessoufou just because of money. It would be just because he wants to return back home to California. And UK definitely had a chance to get him during high school, and I feel like the main reason why UK did not get him was because of two reasons. The first reason, of course, UK was going all in for Caleb Wilson. Basically, Caleb Wilson was the main person that UK was trying to get for the forward position, so they really moved on from Tunde. And then the other thing that happened was UK again, like last year, they always tried to get the last visit for recruits, and I think they changed that up this past year with other recruits because, Caleb Holt came on an early visit, Tyrone Stokes did as well, just naming a couple players from this past year's high school recruitment. But I think UK learned their lesson because under Mark Pope's first year, they were trying to get, the recruit to visit last, and most of the time they weren't getting their recruitment to come to Lexington, to come to Rupp Arena, like because, they already made their decision, or they were like, hey, I'm not going to visit any more schools. I want to just choose between these three schools.
Yeah, obviously he's one of those dudes that like he's not one of the gems of the class that are like you didn't expect to have a great freshman year. Obviously, he was like a 5 star. He was like sought after big time, and like you mentioned, Kentucky tried to go after him a little bit, but then like you mentioned, Caleb Wilson was the prize possession they were really going after. But yeah, he moved from I don't even is it Benin something Africa in 2021. Like you mentioned, he moved to Cali Santa Maria, and he moved when he was 15 years old. So, like you said, it'd be kind of going back home if it's UCLA. But this is one of those that, like, when you see a dude enter with the do not contact tag, it's hard to like
Hmm.
put the whiff title on that because it's
Yeah.
like you said, they either know exactly where they're going or they're going to reach out to who they want to reach out to, and maybe
Hmm.
they're just kind of in the boat of like they don't mess with Mark Pope. I don't know, like it's just one of those. I feel like it's hard to put the whiff title on these type recruitments where, especially if it's super quick. Like if this ends up being like a thing where he commits tomorrow, then I'm like, all right, that's not necessarily a
Yeah.
whiff. Like I know that people have already joked about that, and they're like, all right, fastest whiff of all time. That I don't think it's in that range, but he's a guy that like I know there's the do not contact tag and all that. Like if you even have a chance of
Yeah.
getting, you've got to absolutely go all in and pay him whatever price
Hmm.
possible. Like I don't care. Like I said, I don't think him and Stokes. There's a world. It's like one or the other.
Yep.
Go all in on Yessoufou because it's just you have the opportunity to lock down a guy like that. Like make sure that happens.
Yeah, for sure. And for Tounde, he's easily going to get $3 or $4 million. Like he's going to get it somewhere in that range. And I think like coming out of high school, he was trying to get, I don't know, I could be wrong, but I remember basically like if UK really wanted him, like it was going to be a steep price tag for him. So I assume probably coming out of his senior year of high school, he was commanding probably like 1.5 to $2 million if I just had to guess, just because, like if he came to Kentucky, he would be moving from California to Kentucky, for his freshman year. And then, of course, like he was a top 25 recruit in the class of 2025. There we go. I was getting the years confused. I'm thinking of 2026 and 2027 for football. So easy to confuse, but he was a top 25 overall player in the class of 2025. So he was going to command a lot of money. And of course, like I said, UK just did not get him on a visit at all. I was very disappointed because, like, I talked to Tunde basically whenever he was still in high school just to get recruitment updates from him. He's a very nice guy. I was really pulling for UK to get him as well.
Yeah, and maybe the second time around we can get a little bit of luck there, but
Mhm.
I just hope that we at least have the shot with this because it's like
Mhm.
right now we're in a very tough spot, and I don't know if it's I don't really know what the scenario looks like, but at this
Mhm.
point you just got to get the best guys available,
Yeah.
because like I don't really know why, but we didn't even really contact a ton of the top guys when it comes
Mhm.
to portal rankings and stuff. Like, I don't know. I know Mark Pope's more about fit than just like overall talent. Tunde would
Mhm.
fit, and he's one of
Yeah.
the best guys that's available. So I don't know if it's like at this point you move Cam to the four, or if you can try to
Mhm.
go get another four and Cam's like your six man, and then Tunde is like your starting three. I don't really know
Yeah.
what the scenario is, but he's just a guy that you have to get if you have
Yeah.
the opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. And I think probably right now it would be Tunde starting at your three, and then probably you would either start, like you said, Cam Williams at the four, or try to get another player to start there.
Yeah, no doubt. It's just that's why I kind of think it's like a you move off Stokes to get it because it's like those guys are going to come in and start as your three. Because
Mhm.
I know Stokes would be capable as like a four, but I think the three would fit him better. For especially like what we're going to be trying to do. So I don't know. It's one of those things like we our backcourt's already not great at shooting, just continue to go
Mhm.
in like the best with the ball in their hands type of level players. Like no, like if you had tuned into that, that's three completely unguardable guys with the
Yeah.
ball in their hands. It's not that they're going to get absolutely bogged down. This offense going to get swarmed because of tons of pressure and stuff. Like these guys are still going to be really capable of getting buckets. And
Mhm.
that's where if you can get a guy like this. It doesn't worry me that you don't have necessarily like shooting on your roster because we obviously dealt with that last year, but we
Yeah.
didn't necessarily have the guys that were capable of beating everybody off the dribble. If you do that, and
Yeah.
if you're able to pull this off, you have legit three guys that can just go get a bucket whenever.
Yeah, for sure. And then, of course, like you were mentioning, like you can worry about 3-point shooting, but I feel like if you have, Tunde attacking the rim and then he could pass it out to Alex Wilkins for a three, like I feel more confident out of the three to be 3-point shooters. It would be Alex Wilkins. I feel like between like Zoom Diallo, Alex Wilkins, and then of course Tunde Yessoufou as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. Especially, I don't remember where I saw it, but I did see that like Alex Wilkins like catch and shoot three was very
Mhm.
solid. Because his overall 3-point shooting wasn't great. It was 33%, but those are also those like he shot 5.7 a game. That's not going to
Yeah.
happen. So I think the efficiency is going to go up there. Um, but yeah, like you said, I think he's definitely the most capable of the three to like take a huge leap when it comes to 3-point shooting. So that would
Mhm.
definitely be the goal with that and being more. I don't know how much off ball he's going to be. I think it's going to be like a two guard system type thing. But
Mhm.
yeah, I think if you just have those three guys, you've just got guys that can absolutely fill it up.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, it'll be definitely interesting to see what happens with Tunde Yessoufou. We'll definitely keep y'all up to date, but right now I would be leaning more towards that he will be going to UCLA. Quick question before we switch the topic. So, if UK could either get one of two, but they both want to come here with Tounde Yessoufou and Tyrone Stokes. They both want to come here though, but UK doesn't have the money to afford both of them. Who are you choosing real quick?
They both want to come here.
Yeah, they
Uh,
both want to come to UK, but UK cannot afford both of them.
I mean, I'd probably lean Stokes because, like I said, I think he's just gonna be a better player and he'll be a higher draft pick and be a better NBA player and stuff. But uh, I don't know. Like that's like I think Tunde I would lean as like in the reality because I feel like I've always felt the whole time that Stokes is just like Kansas. Like it just makes
Yeah.
sense that like he doesn't want to be here. Or maybe even Oregon now that all that drama's picked up. But I would say if you tell me that I can have either and one of them is 1,000% coming, then I would probably just go Stokes.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. Get the number one overall player in the class of 2026 with Tyrone Stokes. Of course, I know a lot of people say he has an attitude problem, but I think you deal with that attitude problem and, get him to Kentucky and then be the number one overall player for the first time since, Scalabrine BC in the class of 2015. And then, of course, you had Anthony Davis and John Wall previously, but definitely get Tyrone Stokes, I feel like, over Tounde Yessoufou if, they both want to come here, but UK could only afford one option.
Yeah, because like we talked about in the last episode, like Stokes is one of those dudes that like I mean, it would be an absolute nightmare scenario if it ended up like that. But like you mentioned, the attitude problem, say all that like comes to like fruition and it ends up being like a terrible locker room cancer, whatever label you want to put on it. Maybe it ends up being like that. The year goes bad, Pope gets fired. Like that would all be terrible.
Yeah,
But you're gonna have a like at minimum top three pick and a guy that's gonna have the Kentucky logo by like the name the entire career. Like I talked about with Jody Meeks, like yeah, Jody Meeks played for Billy Gillispie. You don't go back and say like, well, that year at Kentucky, like all that all the time at Kentucky, like you don't look at it and say like, oh man, that was the dark days or whatever. Like you just kind of be like, yeah, Jody was a Kentucky Wildcat, won a championship in the NBA, played in the NBA for a long time. He's still affiliated with the university. It's not that he went to like just Billy Gillispie University. He's still
yeah,
just in Kentucky Wildcat.
yeah.
So I think that's the same type of thing with Stokes.
Yeah, for sure. But do you have anything else you want to add on with Tunde Yessoufou before we transition to talk about Braydon Hawthorne announcing his return to Kentucky? And then, of course, we'll briefly talk about his brother Zion Hawthorne also announcing his commitment to Kentucky as well.
I would just say it's like our fan base is just the funniest in the world because like when this happened, they were like, Mark Pope, you demon. They're like, they'd be Mark Pope, you have the chance to do the funniest thing, or like you have a chance to do it, like just save the offseason and stuff. So it's just funny because it's been like you mentioned, doom and gloom. This happens, they're like, all right, now you have a chance. Like there's always like a win us back like this. So
Yeah.
uh yeah, I mean it'd be funny if we ended up getting this and just seeing what the fan reaction would be.
Yeah, it would be insane if UK either lands Tunde Yessoufou or Tyrone Stokes. Like that would completely change all narratives around the season. Like I know everybody's been happy for like maybe 3 hours, like whenever UK got the commitment of Zoom, and then 3 hours, like a couple days later, once you got Alex Wilkins, like basically the whole fan base, they just want more and more after they get one commitment. They're like, when's our next commitment coming in?
Yeah, I mean that's definitely what the overall fan base is like. But these dudes, I mean, I tweeted about it in the middle of the night last night. Like I was just up late and I was like, man, our backcourt's gonna be so much fun. Like in the darkness of BB and Twitter, I was like, gosh, our
Yeah.
backcourt's gonna be fun. Like no matter what next year looks like, the Zoom Diallo and Alex Wilkins duo is what's gonna fuel me to have some fun next year.
Yeah, for sure. And then now we'll briefly talk about Braydon Hawthorne and, of course, his brother Zion Hawthorne coming to Kentucky as well. So, if y'all don't know, Braydon Hawthorne announced his commitment back to Kentucky. Basically, everybody was like, is he going to come back to Kentucky? Is he going to redshirt? And I think basically the two big issues were, was he going to get paid like he was going to be one of the, like, maybe not starting small fours, but at least, coming off the bench, like, towards that period of making that NIL money. And then, of course, the other option for him is, was he going to get playing time? Because, of course, you get a little bit nervous if you bring in, a Tunde Yessoufou or a Tyrone Stokes. Like, you would have to be competing minutes with both of them, along with Cam Williams as well. So it'll be very interesting to see, like how Braydon Hawthorne will do with him returning back to Kentucky. Of course, he redshirted this past year because he needed to get into the weight room. He was very skinny coming out of high school. But now he is currently 6'8", 190 pounds, and hopefully he can get past the 200-pound mark and be like 200, 210 going into his redshirt freshman season because, like he needs to gain that weight because he can really be a dominant player. I feel like he could easily become like a Kevin Durant version, like in college. Of course, Kevin Durant was great in college basketball at Texas under Rick Barnes. So I could see him becoming, Kevin Durant in college. Of course, Mark Pope has compared Braydon Hawthorne to Tayshaun Prince in college, where Prince was insane for Kentucky. Of course, he had a great career in the NBA, won an NBA championship. So, like, if you can live up to, Tayshaun Prince or even a college level Kevin Durant, you're going to be insane. But I am very excited to see what Hawthorne can do. And hopefully, he'll get some minutes, whether it be like the 6 man off the bench role. But I hope he can get some minutes and actually be like a great player for Kentucky this upcoming year.
Yeah, it seems like we're definitely getting to see a Braden Hawthorne version of him that's going to be playing at least a good amount. Um, I mean, at this point, maybe it's even in a starting role unless we just kind of shift some things this offseason.
Mhm.
But he's at least coming off the bench and he's going to play a real role because if that wasn't the case, he's definitely gone because
Yeah.
there's been reports of teams going after him and being interested in him. If he had hit the market, then they'd be going after him. I mean, it's a 6'8" guy that can shoot it, and he's a super versatile offensive player. So that's something that like really intrigues you already. And then obviously, like you mentioned, the Tayshaun Prince comparisons and stuff from Mark Pope. I don't see how you can't be excited about that. I know like Mark Pope is everything's beautiful and everything is awesome and stuff. I get that, but you also don't just throw comparisons like that around. So you get a little bit of that in him, and obviously he's a righty, Tayshaun's lefty, but
Yeah.
yeah, he's like the mystery like like whatever you want to compare it to. Like it's just something you haven't really seen. Like we haven't all that we've seen of him is like in the warm ups. I think it was at South Carolina. He hit like 10 straight threes or something. And it was
Uh-huh.
just like, yeah, this is crazy. Um, and then everybody like talks about how he's just incredible throughout practices and stuff. So I'm like extremely excited to see what we've got with him.
Hmm.
And honestly, this was one you just like had to get back. It would have been a terrible
Yeah.
look PR wise to be able to just like lose a guy that you brought into redshirt. But also a ton of respect to him because redshirting is not something that happens nowadays. Like
Yeah.
he could have gone to where he was originally committed and played at West Virginia right away and been perfectly fine with it. But he he opted into growing into this system and doing what the staff and everything wanted for him. So Braden Hawthorne's going to be awesome. I have no
Yeah.
doubt about that. And he's got a ton of length, a ton of offensive skills and stuff that he's going to be able to show. And like
Hmm.
you said, I know that that's kind of what the generation compares everybody to is Kevin Durant. But he's that build where he's tall, skinny, he can
Hmm.
dribble, he can shoot, and he got hot at the right time. Like whenever he was coming out of high school, he kind of blew up towards the end, and that's
Uh-huh.
what you want to see out of these guys.
Yeah.
And so that I don't see how there you could like live in a world where you can't be super excited about what Braden Hawthorne's gonna be bringing for us.
Yeah, for sure. And, like everybody was nervous that, Braden Hawthorne might leave. I would have personally been upset if he redshirt, his freshman year and then didn't come back to Kentucky. Like he used all of UK's resources to be able to gain weight, gain muscle, and then of course he leaves after his redshirt year and then goes elsewhere. Like I would have been very upset because like then people would have compared him to like Jaden Acquaintance or Shaden Sharp, a few years ago. So I would have definitely been upset if he did transfer. I'm glad he is back. And it makes me wonder too, like maybe he said, "Hey, I'll come back to Kentucky as long as you also bring my brother along with Zion."
Yeah, well, I mean, apparently he just hadn't thought about it. So, I mean, maybe it was that's
Yeah.
what he said at least. But I mean, that was just a funny thing because it was like obviously that's all you've been thinking about. Um, but I don't really know about the whole like Zion situation. If it was like, yeah, just bring my brother in. But I do love that I saw on Twitter that he nicknamed himself Slimmy Neutron. So that's pretty fun.
Let me
We
know.
got a nickname for Braden.
Yeah, got a little nickname for him.
Yeah, no doubt. But I don't even really care if the Zion thing is like. I mean, we can transition into that now. Like
Yeah.
I don't care if that was a like bring in my brother and I'll come back. Like there's like what now it's there's 15 roster spots. Like
Yeah.
walk-ons don't really exist anymore. Like obviously we loved Walker Horn, we
Uh,
loved Brennan Canada, we loved like all these guys over the
Zach
years.
Cole.
Yeah, Zach Tell, like we've had a great list of walk-ons through the years, and you're getting Zion Hawthorne, who's like played legit minutes and had tons of D1 offers and stuff, and like played like real minutes for Huntington Prep, who's one like they're
Hmm.
not like one of the top prep schools every year, but it's a really, really, really good program overall. Like you get to bring that guy in to be kind of that guy that's like there towards the end of your bench, and it's also
Yeah.
something that all of us have kind of wanted: capable guards that if you need them at the like. I think he'd probably be behind Mason Williams, but like it's just another guard
Mhm.
that just adds to layers and layers and layers. And he's also lefty, so that's always exciting because now
Yeah.
I know it's become like a joke at this point, but lefties, we love the lefties.
Yeah, we love the lefties. If y'all don't know, of course, Mark Pope said he had to change up his whole entire offense this past year because of Jalen Lowe being injured and everything. So just crazy.
Yeah. So then we go get Mason Williams and Zion Hawthorne that
Yeah,
are
for
both
sure.
lefties.
Yeah, and then just getting a little bit more into Zion Hawthorne. If y'all don't know, he's a 6'2" combo guard, West Virginia native. He did have some offers from Wichita State, Arkansas State, Radford, LaSalle, I want to say, and then Bethune-Cookman. So he did have some offers, and of course you cannot forget Wichita State. Kentucky, of course, played them twice in the NCAA tournament, beat them both times. Also was able to upset Wichita State, ending their perfect season. So we've had some great memories against Wichita State over the years. So it was great to get, I guess, another win against them with this recruitment battle.
Oh yeah, no doubt. And the fun thing about it is like Zion Hawthorne. I'll just be honest. I didn't know he existed
Neither
until
did I.
today. I mean I hate to be that guy, but like I didn't know he existed. And then I think the timing is what kind of threw everybody off because like it's obviously like negative, negative, negative. Yay, Braydon Hawthorne's back, whatever. Oh, and then his brother's coming. Like his brother just committed and signed. What's going on here? But like then the thing came out of like my initial thought was like he's obviously just going to be towards the end of the bench. Like he's just like filling. You have roster spots. If you don't use them, you lose them. Like that, you can't
Yep.
just like bring these dudes on mid-season. Like you might as well just throw somebody that's a very solid high school guard in those spots. And then the picture came out later of him and his brother in 2015 at the basketball camp, and you're like, that's awesome. Those are
Yeah.
the heartwarming things that you love to see as a fan. Like you're just like they're one of us. So obviously we saw that when Braden committed last year
Hmm.
that he was just excited to be here, excited to be a part of it. But now you've got Zion in the loop, and you get this duo, and I mean we've had a pretty good track record of brothers
Yeah.
at UK, so maybe that's just another one to add to the list.
Yeah. Who are all the brothers? Of course, I know the Harrison twins.
I
Trying
mean
to
that was just my first one that I thought of, so I was like, I'll just go with it. I don't even know if we've had any other brothers. Probably way back in the day, we probably had some, but
Yeah.
who knows?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of all the brothers for sure, but yeah, the Harrison twins to name one. But yeah, like I said, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with Zion Hawthorne. And like you said, he'll probably be the end of bench guy. Like you have 15 roster spots you have to use, and more than likely you're only going to play like under Mark Pope's system. He's going to play like basically 10 guys. Like you're going to probably play almost 10 players, but most teams you're playing only 7 to 8 guys at most. So Zion Hawthorne will probably be another player that will be close to the bench, close to the end of the bench, maybe like 12th, 13th man, but it'll be definitely interesting to see, how UK fills out the rest of their roster as well.
Yeah, no doubt. And if you're telling me that like out of your 15 guys, the ones that are towards the end is a 7'1", 40% 3-point shooter and a combo guard that played at Huntington Prep, and all the only highlight I've seen, even though I've tried to look, and I'll do some more research, is him going between the legs throwing a lob, and I was like, that's awesome. So those are the things that like if those are towards the end of your bench, that's pretty good just for practice purposes because those guys are very capable of different things. But I did just quick research. I don't know how we forgot about Truett Demoisy and his brother John that played in the 1940s at Kentucky. That was a bad miss by us.
That
Bad
is
bad miss
better.
of the brothers.
Yeah. Hey,
Yeah.
back in the 1940s, so
Yeah, no, I remember it like it was yesterday, so I'm
yeah.
not sure. But yeah, Aaron and Andrew Harrison are the only ones that like it seems like played in any recent years.
Yeah, for sure. But before we transition to talk about the guards that we got with Alex Wilkins and Zoom Diallo, I do want to talk about quickly about UK whiffing on both players with Donnie Freeman, Syracuse forward. He committed to St. John's, so that was very surprising. Everybody was like, "Oh, he's going to Kentucky." Like he verbally committed on his visit whenever he was in Lexington. And then, of course, the other player I want to talk about is Colorado transfer Sebastian Ranchik. He also committed to Florida State. So basically, the issue was UK thought they locked Freeman down. Everybody thought, UK was able to lock down Freeman, but basically his agent kept trying to get a better deal for him. He didn't want, Freeman to go to Kentucky. He was like, you need to go somewhere else, like St. John's or something, or like UConn. Like he was against UK and Tennessee for some reason. I don't know if he has a grudge against Rick Barnes and Mark Pope, but he did not want Freeman to go to either school. He ended up, of course, at St. John's. And then, of course, UK actually had a chance to lock down a commitment with Sebastian Ranchik. And like I said, he decided to not wait. He ended up going to Florida State. And basically, UK had no leverage after Ranchik went to Florida State. And everybody's like, if UK wants to get Freeman, they'll have to overspend to get him. And I guess they decided not to do that.
Yeah, that's I had completely talked myself into the Sebastian Ranchik role of like getting him because it just made a ton of sense with how he plays and stuff. But then it seems like the staff just kind of said like, you know what, we feel pretty good about Donnie Freeman. We're going to go for him.
Mhm.
So you can go elsewhere, go to Florida State, and it ended up coming out. Whatever was that? Was that Saturday that he committed? I don't remember. But
It
then
it
they
was Sunday he committed Ranchik, and then
okay.
Monday was Freeman.
Yeah, so then all the eyes shifted to Freeman like completely. And then that obviously just did not go well. And all the stuff that came out from it was pretty ugly. Just from I think it was Trilly that put out the thing of like his people just did not want him to even like get close to UK. It was just poison. Like
Yeah.
we were used to leverage other schools and stuff. So that whole recruitment um is obviously just disappointing. Like the whole
Hmm.
you have basically like two guys locked up where it feels like you're going to be good. You're getting at least one, maybe even a world where you get both of them, and then you leave with neither. So that was disappointing, but I will say we're not going to be the negative Nancy's. So I
Yep.
want to bring up the Kyle Tucker tweet that he tweeted out that I think brought some light to UK fans, even though they were trying to.
Mhm.
It seems like some UK fans just want to figure out how they can get more negative at times. They're
Yeah.
just like, all right, what can I find right now to make it even worse? But Kyle Tucker put out before anything had even happened. This was on April 20th. So this was yesterday, midday. And he said, whether it's Kentucky, St. John's, Tennessee, or whoever breaks the bank for Donnie Freeman, one caution, he doesn't come without significant concerns. 2 years of foot problems, does not move
Yeah.
well on defense, heavy mid range diet, not a super stretchy four, 30% on threes, not a savior.
Hmm.
So, yes, I understand that it was like that was the name that we heard even before he entered the portal.
Yeah.
It's a bad look to miss on a dude that like you just were going after and that was your main guy right away. It's a tough look like that. But
Yeah.
it's not like as bad as what people have made it seem. Like I don't
Hmm.
think it would have fit super well. It would have been nice because he was a really, really good player, but
Hmm.
like the injury concerns, but also just not being able to stretch the floor
Yeah.
with a backcourt that also doesn't really stretch the floor well. Not that you can just sit there and clog the paint because these guys are on the in the backcourt are capable of shooting, but I don't know. It's just not like I wanted Donnie Freeman. I'm not gonna like sit here in hindsight and be like, no, I didn't even want him anyways. But
Hmm.
there's a world where you can see the optimistic view of like, all right, maybe this is gonna work out even better anyways because it wouldn't have been the best fit in the world, even though Mark Pope missed on a guy that he was going after since day one.
Yeah, for sure. And just to talk a little bit more about Donnie Freeman and Sebastian Ranchik, like we didn't record a podcast last week, after we heard about these two names, but basically whenever I was talking to my girlfriend on this trip and maybe even texting you and then of course a couple of my close friends who follow Kentucky basketball, but I kept telling my girlfriend on the trip, I'm like, UK could get either player like Donnie Freeman is more of an NBA level talent. Like he's going to perform very well, if he goes to UK because he's got that dog in him. Like he's going to be very great. But then if you get Sebastian Ranchek, like he's more perfect for Mark Pope's system. Like you couldn't go wrong with either player basically. Like Ranchek, of course, he's not going to have as like the high upside as Freeman does, or like he's not going to be nearly as great as Freeman, but you couldn't be, you couldn't go wrong with either player. And like I said, I was telling my girlfriend that the whole trip, and I was saying like just get Ranchek, like he's going to be the safer option because you don't know if Freeman will commit to Kentucky. And of course, the staff felt very comfortable in waiting to get Freeman because they're like, yeah, we have him locked up, and there were some rumors that he even verbally committed to Kentucky on his visit, but of course, he didn't officially sign, only verbally committed on his visit, and then he ends up going to St. John's instead.
Yeah, I mean it's just a weird world now that like I mean Mark Pope ended up losing a player to his like favorite person in the world,
Mhm.
and Rick Pitino. It's wild. He definitely fits with Rick, but like you said, he had the NBA upside that you were really excited about. That I mean, he was a 5 star out of high school. He's been like this level of talent his whole life. So that would have been good for would have like that level of player and end up getting an NBA draft pick out of him. But I was also in the same boat as you, just like get Sebastian while you can. Like it's
Mhm.
you're kind of I know BYU fans were pretty confident that they were like going to get a visit out of him, but then I don't really know why, but there was kind of a window that like it was
Mhm.
like he's going to commit in this range, and then it was us or Florida State,
Yeah.
and then the staff just said, you know what, like we feel good about Donnie,
Mhm.
and they think it's better to let Donnie make his decision and wait a day or two, even though when that like Sebastian commitment to Florida State had happened, they were very confident that they
Oh.
had Donnie locked up, but.
Mhm.
Um, that just ended up not being the case. So it was a disaster. I think is the best way to put it. Like you had a legit world where you could have seen you get both these guys. I don't know if that really would have worked out, but at minimum you have one of them,
Yeah.
and you end up getting neither. So it was a tough spot.
Yeah, and it reminded me last year for UK with the Alvaro Folgarius situation where UK had him locked up, like basically like they were like, "Hey, hold up, like we're not going to accept your commitment just yet." And then basically Folgarius got tired of waiting to commit to Kentucky. He decided to end up committing to Iowa, and they had a great year. Of course, Folgarius hit the game-winning three against Florida, which was insane. I remember watching that live. Of course, now he's transferring to Louisville, so that's great to hear. Where last year UK almost had him, decided not to accept his commitment. Now he's at Louisville, for his senior year.
Yeah, no doubt. It's gonna be weird seeing him over there because it's also like I mean, there's so many versions of it now, but like there's so many people that tweet out the Mark Pope all whiff teams, and it's kind of like we didn't whiff on him this year because we weren't really pursuing him, but last year was certainly a whiff,
Yeah,
and and then now he's going to be in the red and black, so that's going to
yeah.
be absolutely disgusting. But good player, it does kind of remind me of that where it was like, oh yeah, Fulgaris is 1,000% going to be a Kentucky Wildcat. It's just a matter of time, and then it just kind of slipped through the cracks, and we didn't end up getting him in the long run.
Yeah.
So that was unfortunate, but
Mhm.
and we're kind of in the same boat again, where it feels like time and time again, and it's with two guys in this instance that like you had it to the finish line, and then it just kind of slipped through your hands, and
Mhm.
you ended up missing on both guys.
Yeah, and basically everybody knows like it feels like Mark Pope always gets the ball down to the 1 yard line and then he just cannot get it through the end zone to get that touchdown. Of course, that's a football analogy, but you can relay that to basketball as well.
Yeah, was that was about Freeman that Polachek said that exact quote, wasn't it?
Really?
Or was
I didn't see that.
Oh, I think it was Freeman he was referring to
Hmm.
that he had said like Mark Pope and his staff literally had it to the 1 yard line.
Yeah.
And so it would be really bad if they end up losing this. And then obviously it was like a day later we end up losing him.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, like you said, like Ranchik would have made a lot more sense for his
Hmm.
system. And it was a guy that I wasn't familiar with, but I was like, I'm very intrigued by him. And I'd watched
Hmm.
enough and done a little research and stuff. And I was like, I like Ranchik.
Yeah.
I think not that I was like, I want him over Donnie, but I
Yeah,
was
of
like,
course
he is a
not.
very fine second option if you don't have a chance to get Donnie, and then they end up
Hmm.
pivoting and thinking they got Donnie, and they don't end up getting him. And so yeah, it was unfortunate. It was really unfortunate this weekend to have basically the highs of highs where you get Alex Wilkins, and you're like,
Mhm.
oh man.
Yeah.
we're on a tear now. And then you get the disappointing day, and you're kind of in this boat where, like I said before we jumped on here, this is about as negative as I've seen the fan base. Like
Yeah. It's
there's been
awful.
some dark times in recent years. This is up there with the best of them.
Yeah, for sure. And before we talk about Wilkins and Diallo, I do want to mention one other thing from Jeff Goodman. He tweeted out yesterday, he said, source told the Field of 68 that a huge factor in Donnie Freeman choosing St. John's over Kentucky was Rick Pitino. He said, quote, he wanted a guy that would coach them hard and wanted someone who had coached pros. And I'm thinking to myself, like, Mark Pope, he had some pros on his team during his first year at UK with Amari Williams and of course Kobe Bray as well. Like they both got drafted. Of course, Lamont Butler, he got picked up. Sadly, he tore his ACL. And then Jackson Robinson also got picked up. Andrew Carr did as well. So he had players picked up from his first year at Kentucky. Granted, all of them were fifth year seniors, so they didn't have any more college eligibility. So they had to go pro, like whether it be overseas or the NBA, or not even going pro, like just finding a full-time job like us.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, those guys were obviously they hold a special place in our heart. That was the foundation there. So, um, yeah, that group had some pros for sure, but it's just a really tough look to kind of see like my buddy Landon. That was like my initial worry when we hired Mark Pope was like, man, can he recruit? And that's
Yeah.
obviously not been necessarily checked off by any means. Um, and then his worry was like he has nothing to sell, and I didn't think it was like a huge deal. But like if
Mhm.
you look on the football side of things, like Will Stein has the clip went viral this week among BB and Twitter of like him saying like we're just dudes. We're not like quarter zip and khaki guys. We just wear
Yeah.
like a Nike jumpsuit, and we just kind of make these guys feel like they're just talking to dudes that like coaching
Uh-huh.
football. We're just football coaches and stuff. So like you have that where they're just absolute realists at the end of the day, and they also have the like mentality that you want to be around. And then they also Will Stein has quarterback after quarterback after quarterback that he can point to that like, yeah, I coached that guy. Like that's
Yeah.
why they're able to recruit so well, because they've all had this track record of guys that they've proven that they can do it with and send them to the next level. Because that's what these kids' goal is at the end of the day. They're trying to get to the next level. It doesn't matter how long these dudes are in college. Like Devin Askew's going into like his 40th year of college. His still ultimate goal is get to the NBA. That's
Yeah.
their goal no matter what. So not having that to be able to kind of lean on at the
Mhm.
end of the day is not great. Like Calipari, I can't even imagine what his recruiting tactics are at this point because it's just like he probably doesn't even have to talk. He probably just sits there and he just has a piece of paper that shows all the guards he coached, and he's like, "Hey, just look at that."
Yeah.
Like it's probably just like he doesn't even have to say anything because it's just like that's the dude, that's the guy that's been doing it for so long, pumping out these guys. And Rick Pitino wasn't necessarily like the pros guy that was just pumping out NBA
Yeah.
players every year, but he's done it long enough. And I mean that's only one of many reasons why you would actually want to go play for Rick
Mhm.
Pitino. So it's funny that like that's part of the
Yeah.
reason, but it's just an unfortunate thing to see. Like,
Yeah.
man, I want to go play for somebody that has. It's wild as a Kentucky fan to see it because that's what we've been forever. Pre-Cal, we were
Mhm.
still the NBA U. We were just still pumping it out, pro after pro after pro.
We were.
And now we're at the point where our coach is getting picked over because he just doesn't really push out pros. It's just wild.
Yeah, and I know in Mark Pope's like first full season, I know like Alabama was using that against him, and then basically he had Jason Hart and Alvin Brooks on his staff saying, "Hey, these are actually all the players that we were able to get into the NBA, so we can produce NBA talent." Of course, now Jason Hart and Alvin Brooks are both not on the staff anymore. Jason Hart, of course, is going to SMU. Alvin Brooks, I believe, is with North Carolina State. I could be wrong about that. I'm pretty sure he went there though.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
still see all of his I haven't seen Legroom post, but I've been seeing he's been posting a lot of Wolfpack memes.
Yeah,
So
Wolfpack memes.
yeah.
But yeah, so I know Alabama was using that against Mark Pope and the staff whenever they were trying to secure the commitment of Jasper Johnson. Of course, he ended up committing to Kentucky. Now he's transferring to Oregon. So, I guess it's Pacific Northwest till I die now.
Yeah, no doubt. I had never seen what his truck looked like until maybe 2 weeks ago or something.
Mhm.
And it's just gonna be a tough time getting that covered up.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know, I'm not trying to get off topic, but whenever you were talking about Will Stein earlier, saying like, hey, I don't wear khakis, I wear just like football gear whenever talking to players or whatever. I don't know if you saw somebody made a funny tweet between what Will Stein says to a recruit compared to Mark Pope. I saw that tweet today, and it just made me laugh. I won't say what it was because, like,
Caterpillar.
yeah, the Caterpillar
Yeah,
one.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. I won't say the tweet. You all will have to Google it or search it because, like we like to keep our podcast like PG or G rated, but it wasn't that bad, but I just don't want to say it.
Yeah, if you're super curious, just like do the Twitter search and just look up like Mark Pope Caterpillar, and
Yeah.
you'll probably find it.
Yeah, but the only other thing I really want to know from Jeff Goodman's tweet, though, he also said that he wanted a guy that would coach him hard, talking about Freeman and Rick Pitino at St. John's. And I feel like, Mark Pope gets a bad rep about that because, like, he had to bench, like Brandon Garrison. I guarantee he didn't want to, but he had to bench Garrison this past year for Malachi Marino during the year. So. I do think, like Mark Pope can be soft at times, but I feel like if you really want, to get like if you really want him to be like hard on you or whatever, he can because like that's what Pope can do because like he can be soft, but I feel like he can actually be very hard on players as well.
Yeah, I think you can kind of see that in like even the Journey videos at halftime and stuff, where they kind of show the behind the scenes there, and then the CBS documentary that they put out a couple weeks ago. Like I feel like you kind of see that there is. I mean, people joked about it and called him like Dark Pope. And
Yeah,
like
Dark Pope.
there's that other version of him that's like definitely coaching hard. I don't know if it. I don't know if anybody's getting close to Rick Pitino coaching hard, but um, yeah, it's just. I don't think that he's necessarily what we see on the
Mhm.
surface,
Yeah.
like in a way. So, yeah, I don't think that's necessarily like a thing. I think no matter where he goes, he's going to get coached hard. Like it's,
Mhm.
I just feel like that was another excuse to kind of pile on to the whole thing. I think it was more of just like, I mean, play for Rick Pitino. They kind of, I don't really know what the offers ended up being. They probably just matched the offer or
Yeah.
something. But his people just wanted him anywhere but Kentucky.
Yeah.
And so that ended up being the place.
Yeah, for sure. But enough talking about them. We're going to quickly talk about our commitments that we have received with the guards. Of course, the first commitment comes from Zoom Diallo. He was transferring from Washington this past year. He scored nearly 16 points per game, nearly 4 rebounds, along with 4.5 assists. Shot the ball very well, 48.9% from the field. He will be a junior this upcoming year, so he will have 2 years of eligibility. 6'4", 180 pounds, and I really think Zoom Diallo didn't really want to come to Kentucky. I think Arizona was his first option, but of course Arizona went in a different direction with their guard play. And I really think Diallo really wanted to stay out west if he could, but of course he's going to end up at Kentucky. He's going to be in Lexington. He's going to be a Wildcat, hopefully for 2 years if he doesn't transfer after his junior year or if he doesn't go to the NBA draft. But I am very excited to get Diallo. He's going to be able to score in bunches. My only one worry about him is just him being able to share the ball, be able to get other teammates involved, and get more assists.
No, I'm not excited at all because Jeff Goodman told me it's not going to work. So,
Yes, it's not going to
yeah,
work.
I can't be excited. No, I'm extremely excited. As soon as we got it, obviously it was the first like splash of the offseason, so that was another thing that kind of like that's the first time we had seen like Blank had committed to Kentucky, and it was like, oh shoot, here we go, here we go. But like I put out that day, even before we had got him, it was just after all the Rob Wright news and stuff that I was like. I had said numerous times to people, I was like, there's part of me that kind of wants Zoom Diallo over Rob Wright. Like Rob Wright would probably fit better because he's a better shooter and stuff,
Yeah,
but I trust Zoom Diallo more with the ball in his hands because of the physicality of the SEC and stuff. Like he's a bigger player, stronger player. He played in a really good Big Ten last year that had two teams in the Final Four. Like he's experienced like grown man basketball. Not that Rob Wright hasn't, but like I don't know. Rob Wright's just a different type of player to me. There was a lot of me, like a lot of my opinions that were going out. I was like, Zoom Diallo is just as good as him for what we need him to be next year. So I was very happy about it. Um, the facilitating is one thing for sure, but like
hmm
it was 4.5 assists to 2.5 assists last year, which isn't great, but I mean
yeah,
it's not terrible. But I think because of who else we are bringing in, that's what makes me like kind of I'm pretty calm about that. Like I'm not worried about the the
Hmm.
facilitating side of things.
Hmm.
Like you mentioned, he was super efficient from the field in general, 49%, 32% from three. So it's not great, but it could be worse. He's capable.
Hmm.
But then 83% from the free throw line. Like anytime that I see the really, really high free throw percentages, those always like intrigue me because that those like kind of suggest that other things can kind of follow and
Yeah.
they can take a step forward. So I tweeted a couple weeks ago about like the step forward and the huge jump that he had made
Hmm.
in every statistical category from year one to year two. And I've also heard a lot of people talk about he was just in a super crowded backcourt, so he never really got into the full flow of things because Washington was just a weird team roster construction wise last year. So now he's kind of getting into a spot where he's going
Yeah.
to be one of two true guys as the backcourt. And he's going to be able to play alongside some really talented players and stuff. So
Hmm.
I'm super excited about it.
Yeah.
I absolutely love the pickup. And yeah, I mean, the funny thing is like, that's not all we do, but we run Zoom action. And now we have our point guard named Zoom.
Zoom.
That's going to be running Zoom action.
Zoom in. I don't know if y'all saw my post, but basically first day whenever we got to Gatlinburg, I did like a little shimmy saying, "Hey, Kentucky basketball actually got the commitment of Zoom Diallo." I got a lot of hate for posting that. They're like, "Why would he post that? Delete, delete." So that was very lovely and fun.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, I can't let the haters pull you down.
Yeah, for
Do you
sure.
know what his full name is?
My girlfriend told me about that on vacation, and I know it's like a weird name, like
It's
art.
Vazumana. I guess
Yeah,
that's how you say it. But
Vazumana. Yeah,
yeah, Vazumana. But
yeah.
Zoom is just sick. Zoom Diallo just fits the name test.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, my after like we got the commitment, like the next morning she was reading a CBS article because she knows I love UK so much, so she'll always keep up with UK news for me and of course any other sports. And she said something to me earlier about a commitment. I think it was I'm blanking on who it was, but she told me about one player committing to another school. I'm like, hey, I actually already knew that, but thank you for letting me know.
Yeah, you got you a good one because I mean, yeah, being able to kind of stay in the loop of things because I mean, especially in the modern day of college
Mhm.
sports, it's an absolute mess. So,
Yeah.
yeah, credit to her for kind of staying in the loop with you.
Yeah, I think it was John Blackwell. I'm pretty sure he ended up committing to Duke.
Yeah, yeah, that
Yeah,
one's crazy. I mean, I was told by Louisville people they would not be outbid, so I don't really
yeah.
know if they were outbid, but it's just
Mhm.
funny he just canceled his visit and commits to Duke.
Yeah, for sure. But just talking a little bit more about Zoom Diallo, I do worry about his playmaking, but I'm looking at more of his stats. He did have three double doubles this year. He had 22 points, 11 assists against USC, and an 83-79 win. So that's pretty crazy. Then he lost to Iowa this past year, 84-74, but he had 16 points, 12 assists. In another game against Illinois, which went to the Final Four. He had 12 points, 10 assists, so he can definitely dish the ball. It just depends if UK will be able to, have three-point shooters around him along with a solid big man, which hopefully with Malachi Marino, he will get stronger as long as he returns to Kentucky and he doesn't actually stay in the NBA draft. I don't think he will, but it will definitely be interesting to see that. But hopefully he can become more of a lob threat with Zoom Diallo and of course also Alex Wilkins too.
Yeah, no doubt. And the other thing that I really like about him is just the physicality that he plays with. And it also shows on his rebounding numbers because the game that you mentioned against Illinois, he also had 7 rebounds. So he had 12, 10, and 7.
Yeah.
But he averaged just under 4 a game. And so I just, you don't see guards that go and make sure that they're rebounding the ball and playing with the physicality that he plays with. And that's part of why I wanted him so bad. Like he knows what he is offensively. He gets to his spots. He's a great finisher around the rim. So I just love that. Like I
Mhm.
know that it wasn't Jalen's fault last year, but like he was a skinnier guy, and it was like not that he's definitely gonna get injured because he'd never been injured before, but it was just kind of one of those things you were like, dang man, like this just kind of stinks. So now you get a guy
Yeah.
that's got like a better frame when it comes to physicality, and the way that we'll want to play with him this year. So that's the thing that intrigues me the most. Like he's a capable shooter, but
Yeah.
he's also super physical and a great finisher.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, I'll be very excited to see what Zoom Diallo can do along with Alex Wilkins. Of course, Alex Wilkins, he's going to be your starting shooting guard, the combo guard. We'll transition to talk about him, but man, he did so well for Furman this past year. And of course, Furman, they were playing against UConn this past year in the NCAA tournament, and Furman kept it close with UConn. They were only down by 4 points going to halftime. They eventually lost the game 82 to 71, but for Furman, with Alex Wilkins, he had 21 points, 8 for 15 from the field, 4 for 8 from the 3-point line, along with 4 assists, one steal, and also one rebound. So overall, Alex Furman, like he kept, Furman in the game against UConn, which is insane to think about because UConn went to the championship game. Of course, they lost to Michigan, but Furman, they were the number 15 seed. But overall, for his stats, he had nearly 18 points per game, along with nearly 5 assists, 2 rebounds, 46% from the field, nearly 33% from the 3-point line, and he played in 35 games for Furman. So he's going to be a great kid, and he's going to be a creative finisher. Like some of the finishes he had around the rim this past year were just insane, though.
Yeah, for sure. He's like as excited as I could be about a transfer pickup, especially in the last few years. Um, the one thing that like stood out to me right away is like the not that it's just like the non-ball knowers of the world, but it was just like everybody was complaining right away about him being from Furman. Like
Yeah.
it was so annoying. So I was like kind of going through and I was like, not this year because Michigan kind of had it was a different style roster, but I guess if you look at the UAB Yaxel type of comparison, it's a small school to a big jump there. But if you just look at guard wise, like I was just going through. So with Florida, they had three of them. They had Elijah Martin, FAU, Will Richard, Belmont, and then Walter Clayton, Iona. All three of those guys came from small schools, took a huge leap once they got to the SEC. Tristan Newton came from East Carolina,
Mhm.
played 2 years at UConn, won a national championship, and he's a huge part of that.
Yeah.
Like these dudes like play real minutes, and like
Yep.
his numbers are kind of comparable. His last year at ECU, he averaged 17.7 points per game. Alex Wilkins 17.8 points per game. Like they're
Yeah.
similar in a way. Like they're kind of different. They're both 6'5", but they've kind of played different. But like to that point, it's just like you can't look at like where they started. There's guys that like
Mhm.
slip through the cracks every single year, and he's one of those guys. I mean, I'd be lying if I said I was watching Furman all year. There's no
No.
world where I was doing that. But I did watch the tournament game, and then I've watched through highlights and stuff and everything.
Mhm.
I know highlights make you look good, but just off of what he can be, I don't see how you can't be excited. Like I
Yeah.
know people have talked about the Shea comparisons, and even I think
Same
it was
here.
Keegan Brown that put the SGA GIF out, which was ironic because he definitely been on BB and Twitter a little bit. Um, like those comparisons are there for a reason. It's a guy that can get to his spot, plays
Mhm.
at his own pace, all that stuff. Like he's going to be perfect for us, and he's
Yeah.
also very capable of playing with the ball in his hands. And I think that they did that on purpose. Like Diallo averaged 4.5 assists per game, and Alex Wilkins averaged 4.7 assists per
Yeah.
game. So these are two guys that you don't have to necessarily have like, all right, this is the guy that brings the ball up, and this is the guy that does this, and this like they can both do it all. So I think that's definitely something that they went into the offseason going with, like that mindset. I don't know if that's a Keegan Brown thing because he's kind of like he's the director of roster management. So it's
Mhm.
kind of like he probably does kind of have a say in like what type of guys you go get. But Alex Wilkins, like we beat some top dogs for him. Like it was UConn, it was Alabama. There was a lot of good teams that were trying to get him on campus, and we were able to like lock that down while he was on campus and stuff. And
Yeah.
just make sure we didn't let that get away from us to where he went on other visits and stuff. So that's the recruitment that I've been most impressed with out of all the years of Pope. Like out of these 3 years where he's had a chance to go recruit guys,
Mhm.
that's the one that I've probably been most impressed with because like he was highly sought after in this portal. So
Yeah, for
being
sure.
able to beat out those top guys and stuff and from the reports and stuff, we didn't like overpay and we didn't like just offer him amount of money that these other teams couldn't match. So I'm so excited about Alex Wilkins. Seeing
Yeah.
him in Kentucky Blue is gonna be awesome.
Yeah, same here. And like I said, I think both of them can play, make, and create. Like I said it in my first tweet, whenever Alex Wilkins was coming onto campus for Kentucky, I was like, man, will they be able to play make for others? Like, will they be able to, get their assist numbers up? Of course, like you mentioned, they had over 4.5 assists per game, but that's the one thing I was worrying about because I knew they would be able to score, but will they be able to play make and create for others? But I do believe they can do that as long as, Mark Pope and the staff can be able to create a roster for them to be able to play make for others.
Yeah, no doubt. And the one thing, like I had a friend of mine that's a Louisville fan tonight. and he had asked me, he was like, "Don't like," because I had said like what I talked about, where I tweeted last night, where I was like, "Our backcourt's gonna be so fun. That's the bare minimum. We're gonna have a fun time watching this backcourt, no matter what happens with the rest of the roster." But he was like, "Don't tell me you're in that crowd of like thinking they're Eric Bledsoe and John Wall." And I was like,
No.
"Dude, like you people are fools. Like why do you actually? Nobody's actually thinking they're gonna be that. Why don't you
Yeah.
click on the article and read it?" Jeff Goodman started the thing saying like it's 2 point guards that are playing side by side now.
Hmm.
That's the comparison. They play similar. They played with the ball in their hands and they play like kind of combo guard roles and stuff. Like that's the comparison. It's not that like they're
Hmm.
going to be at minimum John Wall and Eric Bledsoe
Yeah.
and all this stuff. Like that was the most annoying thing about it is like headlines can be really good and headlines can be really bad. And that was one. I don't remember who wrote it. I think it might have been Adam Luckett on KSR that kind of published that, but it was Jeff Goodman that originally said that.
Uh-huh.
And he at least provided context because it was on video. He didn't just tweet it out. But that headline got so many people. They were
Yeah.
just like, no way Alex Wilkins is getting compared to John Wall
John
here. Like
Wall.
I was like,
Yeah.
these people are crazy.
Yeah, and like you were mentioning, like people aren't actually saying that, John Wall and Eric Bledsoe will both be, Zoom Diallo, and then of course Alex Wilkins, like you were saying, they're just going to be two guards, 2 point guards that will be playing with the ball and trying to play make as well. Like, but basically both of them will need the ball in their hands. It just depends on how Mark Pope and the staff will be able to use them both, though.
Yeah, no doubt. And I mean, they play a little different, but their numbers are similar and stuff. So I just think they're going to end up meshing well. Like I think they've bought into what the staff is going to want for them, and that's why they were able to kind of get this locked up so quick with these guys. Because I mean, the Rob Wright stuff happened and it like was immediately. It was hours later that we were able to get Zoom Diallo, and then Alex Wilkins comes and
Yeah.
visits the campus, and you get that one like locked down. So
Hmm.
I'm in love with the backcourt though. Like it's obviously you could see a world where it was like Rob Wright, and then maybe you get like a I don't even know what another like perfect pair with him would be like maybe Paul McNeil. I don't know.
Yeah.
But like this is as fun as a backcourt and as exciting a backcourt as I think I could have imagined going into this offseason.
Yeah, for sure. Their backcourt will be amazing. Hopefully, they can figure out their forward position because I just don't feel confident in starting, like Cam Williams at the three. Hopefully, you're able to get Tounde Yessoufou or also Tyrant Stokes. So we'll see what happens with UK's front court because it'll be interesting because right now, like the only position that you really have locked up as a starter is Malachi Marino. Like you could, of course, always start Cam Williams at your three or four, but I feel like most UK fans don't want that, and if they want to be really competitive this year to try to, win the national title, you have to get probably a more solid three or a more solid four.
Yeah, no doubt. I think honestly, I could talk myself into a world where if you obviously you mentioned Tunde Yespu, like that would be exceptional. But I could talk myself into like a world where maybe like I think we may have mentioned it in the last one or something, but like if you were to miss on Donnie Freeman, then you pivot and you go all the way in on Momchilovich or Graves, and you make sure
Yeah.
to like get them out of the draft and play for you because you're going to pay them more money than what they could even get there.
Hmm.
Um, and I think if you get one of like those two guys, and then you could have Cam at the three, I think I
Hmm.
could talk myself into that because then he's in a
Yeah.
lesser role. He doesn't have to be like a super. He doesn't have to like be the guy like for any of the time. So
Hmm.
I do think he's going to take a huge leap forward from what he did last year.
Hmm.
But I just think that there's you just got to have more outside of him. Like I think if you
Yeah.
don't get if you end up having to start Cam at the four, then you've got to get one of Stokes or Tunde, and then if you
Yeah.
start him at the three, then you've got to get one of those fours like I mentioned. So I think you've
Mhm.
just got to get another like big fish outside of him to be able to pair with him.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with you on that. And like I said, it'll be interesting to see, how UK fills out their three and their four position in the starting five because, like you mentioned, the Iowa State four, or, also Santa Clara four, they're both in the NBA draft. So we'll see what happens. We'll see if they come back, get out the NBA draft, and actually commit to another school.
Yeah, I mean that's what I don't really know necessarily what their stock looks like, but I just don't understand like why this is the draft you go into because like
Yeah.
you're at best starting at like the end of lottery. Like
Yeah.
it's just like you're there's no hope of getting higher than that. Like even if you had your best outing ever in front of all the scouts and everything, like you're at best at the end of the lottery.
Yeah, probably. But there's one other thing I want to talk about with basketball, and then, well, two things I want to talk about basketball, and then we can briefly talk about football, the spring game. But I want to talk about Governor Andy Beshear's comment. I don't know if you saw it earlier today, but it basically shocked basically the whole state of Kentucky. I won't read the whole quote, but I'll read part of his quote. He said, I am losing confidence and growing increasingly concerned with the management and decision making at the University of Kentucky. My concerns include the creation of a new $1 million job that has no defined duties and the announcement that the new dean of law was the only candidate not recommended by law school faculty. So, like I said, I'm just reading a little bit about that quote. And basically, he's coming after UK President Eli Capilouto and, of course, Mitch Barnhart, who's going to be stepping down from UK as the AD for his new job. And if the governor of Kentucky is questioning this, like, you have to wonder, like, what is going on. And hopefully, like, this next meeting that is about to happen with UK, like, hopefully something will take place because, like, I get it if Mitch Barnhart got this new position and he was only making like 80 or $90,000, like fans, people, they would still be upset with this. But for him to be basically making nearly $1 million in this new position is crazy to me.
Yeah, it's wild. At first, when I had first seen it, I was like, "Wait, no way! Like, this got to be AI." And then I go and it's actually from his actual Twitter, and it's signed by him and all that. And I was like, "This is crazy!" But
Yeah.
it's literally like what we've all kind of been concerned about. It's like, what in the world is this job that Mitch is going into? Like, the technical name is Executive in Residence for the UK Sport and Workforce Initiative. Like, what even is that? That doesn't even make sense. So getting a job that's essentially paying $1 million to just ride off into the sunset. And then he's gotten mad when people have talked to him about it and asked him questions about that job. Like, yeah, there's definitely reasons for everybody to be concerned. And obviously, Bashir, like, wants nothing but the best for all the universities in the state. And $1 million is a whole lot of money just to
Yeah.
throw at a position that has no defined role. So I completely get it. Like I think we had even talked on here about it, how we were concerned about it when all that came about. And yeah, it's just like I don't know how you can't be concerned about that. Like you're not
Yeah.
saying like you mentioned, maybe if he gets a job that's this technical, like this is the role of it, for maybe even just slightly into the six figures, but
Yeah.
$950,000 a year is
It's too much.
not okay. And I don't know, like and also whoever the next AD is, like you don't need him just looming over your head the whole time too,
Mhm.
because he's been obviously in this AD role for a long time. You don't want that guy just over your shoulder watching your every move. So it's bad for numerous reasons. It's bad
Yeah.
to just keep him around because you don't want that kind of shadow over your head if you're the new AD trying to like kind of run things here.
Hmm.
But then also it's just a whole lot of money being paid from the school.
Hmm.
So it's just a not a great look. So I'm
Hmm.
honestly kind of glad because I mean I know everybody in the state's gonna have their own opinion on Andy Bashir, but like I'm
Hmm.
glad he said that because
Yeah.
it's a massive concern for the university.
Yeah, and of course, we're not trying to get into politics at all. We're just saying what, Governor Andy Bashir had to say about UK, specifically about Mitch Barnhart. And of course, he's going to be retiring or stepping down from his role of being the AD in June. So it'll be interesting to see, who UK gets as their new AD. They could go in-house or they could, hire somebody outside the university. And I hope they do hire somebody outside the university. But like you also mentioned, like, if you do hire somebody outside or inside the university, you still have to worry about Mitch Barnhart being over their shoulder and everything. So that's also going to be interesting as well. Barnhart did say, though, in his press conference, whenever he was stepping down, basically saying that UK doesn't need a Mitch Barnhart 2.0, and hopefully that is the case because, like, we don't want a Mitch Barnhart 2.0. We want somebody to be able to relate to the fans, to be able to help get maybe the students more involved for basketball, football games because basketball games they can be very boring at times where you've got the old crowd, the old folks down towards the core of the arena. Like you only have one little section for the students. Like let the students be more down in the bottom of the section, like towards the court, so it can be rowdy. Of course, like it won't ever be like Duke rowdy where like playing at Duke it's insane, but you get my point. We want, more students to be at games and just to be rowdy.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, there's so many things that you can point out that Mitch did like incredibly well, and he brought numerous programs to heights they hadn't seen yet, and so we obviously thank them for that. But there's so many different things, like you mentioned, the basketball arena. That's one of the things that has just like kind of drove us crazy. It's like it's been a joke even outside of our fan base that like yeah, the lower bowl is just donors, and it's just like people that don't even stand up, and then they'll yell if you stand up in front of them, and it's like it's just not an environment where it creates a like massive advantage for you in like home games. Like the Allen Fieldhouse stats are just crazy, and the Cameron Indoor stats are crazy. Like people, like you go around. I saw something like maybe even like a week ago about all these players saying like the craziest place and craziest environment they ever played, and Kentucky's not on any person's list. It's always Kansas. I think I saw one Arizona. There's like some Dukes in there. I mean, Carolina's in the same boat as us. They're not getting rowdy either. But like there's so many schools that
Hmm.
use it to their advantage, and we have the best fans in
Yeah.
this sport. We have the best fans in college athletics. Use that to your advantage. Like
Hmm.
I know Kroger Field's not huge and it doesn't hold a massive number of people, but it gets rowdy, and
Yeah.
you can hear it in those big time opportunities that we have against big teams. You can hear it kind of get to another level. That's exactly what you could use the basketball arena for. It's one of the biggest in the country, and obviously the fans have so much passion. Like let them be able to get more of just the eruption zone for the students, and just all of this is just donors over here and stuff. Like you've got to open it up more to people to be able to like let the passion and pride shine through, because it's just that was another thing that you added to the Mitch Barnhart list of things that were just like kind of aggravating about his run here.
Yeah, for sure. And like maybe raise the students' tuition by like 50 or $100, a year. Like that's not a lot to go up. And of course, you have probably about 20,000 students at UK. Like that's an easy way to probably make $1 million or $2 million. And you don't have to worry about, that $1 or $2 million coming from donors. Like then you can have more students down there on the court and just be able to get rowdy, be able to get the players hyped up for the game and everything.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's kind of the same thing in football. Like for Alabama, from what I've heard from like the actual like national media people, they're like the crowd's not like crazy because they kind of have that thing that we have where there's just a lot of donors and important people in the state that get those main seats. The rowdy fans are really up top and stuff. But like they have the home winning numbers and everything that you can kind of point to be like, well, it's fine. Like yeah, we win a lot of games at home because like we're usually just towards the top of the sport. That's kind of just why we win the games. But to be able to have the legit advantage of like it's literally if you go down Fieldhouse on a Monday, you lose. Like you just lose automatically. Like they get the big Monday, they get those crowd, the crazy crowd, and all the insane Kansas fans and stuff, and they win automatically. If you can add that to like Kentucky,
Yeah.
you're just in a different boat. Like where it makes it even more difficult to kind of come into that situation because people already talk about like coming into Rupp is crazy. They kind of do their shoot around before and they're looking up and it's so big and everything. And then
Hmm.
if they come into it and there's also fans screaming at them from 10 rows away, then it's another level of intense in there. So like I just don't understand why we don't use it to our
Yeah.
advantage. Like we have the best fans in the world. Use them.
Because it all comes down to money, sadly.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. I mean,
Yeah.
and we're gonna yeah, squeeze every last dollar out that we can.
Yeah, for sure. But there's only one other thing I want to talk about Kentucky basketball. Then we'll quickly talk about football and wrap up the podcast. But it was reported today that Billy Donovan would be stepping down as the Chicago Bulls head coach. So it'll be definitely very interesting to see, if he takes another job within the next year. Because if he doesn't take a job within the next year and he just sits that out just to see, what's going on in the college basketball, because he's been out being a head coach in college basketball for over a decade. The last time he was a head coach in college basketball was the 2014-2015 season with the Florida Gators. They went 16 and 17 that year, but he then voted to the NBA. He went to the Thunder. He was there for a few years, and then he's been with the Bulls for the past six. I think he's been an NBA head coach for 11 years, but it'll be definitely very interesting to see if, UK, if they have a very bad year under Mark Pope. Hopefully that doesn't happen because we all want UK and Mark Pope to be successful while here. But, if they do have a bad year, does UK call Billy Donovan immediately after, Mark Pope and Kentucky finishes up their year three, do they fire, Pope and then be able to hire Billy Donovan quickly? Like, of course, like I said, you have a lot of questions with Donovan because he's been out of the coaching with college basketball with the NIL transfer portal now being a thing. Of course, UNC they tried to get him this past year. UNC did not. They of course hired former NBA head coach and champion Michael Malone. So it'll definitely be very interesting to see, what happens going into year three with Mark Pope, and then, if it comes out bad, you might be able to get Billy Donovan.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, the blanket statement, we want it to work out with Pope. Like you said, like we want that to be the scenario where we don't have to go through all of this and all that different stuff. But I genuinely think if he does take this like year off, he's the first call. Just because
Yeah,
it's like, I know there's the world where you're always going to make like Dan Hurley say no. You got to make Dusty May say no. You got to make Brad Stevens say no. But like, I just think at this point, like, no matter who the new AD is, I think they would just be like, I mean, it's just so obvious. Like, we've
yeah,
tried to get him so many times. Like, we tried to get him when we got Billy. We tried to get him when we got Cal. We tried to get him when we got Pope. And then we just keep missing. Maybe fourth time the charm. I don't know. But it's just been such a difficult situation. And like, there's gonna be so many jobs to open up. So I'm kind of hoping that Billy doesn't just jump on one of those. And also, one thing that can make it interesting is like the whole thing about Steve Kerr's contract is up. So if they don't extend that, then they go after Todd Golden. Then Florida comes open, then Billy takes that, and it's like that would
yeah.
suck,
That
big
would be a
time.
crazy domino effect.
Yeah, that would be terrible. But it's certainly big news in the world of college basketball and stuff. So, uh, the one thing I don't remember who it was from. I'll see if I can pull it up real quick, but um, like there was the guy on Twitter today that put out, I don't even know who the guy was, but it looked like he was a legit Evan Sidery. I think it was like
Hmm.
he's an NBA, NFL reporter or something, but he said some executives believe Billy Donovan could be intrigued by the idea of coaching at the University of Kentucky if he takes a year off. Kentucky pursued Donovan before hiring Mark Pope, who enters next season on the hot seat. Donovan began his coaching career at Kentucky in 1989. So the same Billy Donovan picture, it's funny. It just keeps popping up. Like every time anything bad happens, you still see the same young Billy D. Um, but it would be cool because he's
Yeah,
only. I think he would be 61 if that was to end up being the case. Like next
yeah,
year. There's part of me though that's like I'm so just in love with what Jay Lucas has been doing in Miami, and obviously he's going into year two, so you kind of got to see something in year two, see him maybe even take a leap forward, even though he had a great first year. But like I just don't know who the first call is if that
yeah.
happens. Like I still feel like it'd probably just be Billy because it seems obvious. But it's certainly intriguing because he's
Mhm.
like you mentioned the Kentucky job. He didn't talk to anybody about anything because he was focused on the Bulls. And then North Carolina job, he
Yeah,
didn't talk to anybody about anything because he's focused on the Bulls. So um, now that he's free, maybe that ends up being a world where we see that. But like you mentioned, he's been out of the game so long, it's completely not even close to the same sport that it
no,
was when he left it. So it really comes down to just who he would hire around him, no matter
yeah,
whether it's Kentucky, whether it's a different college basketball job. If he ends up coming back to the sport, then it's all going to come down to who he hires around him and people that can kind of take care of things because he's a dang good ball coach. We know that. You don't
yeah,
last that long in the NBA if you can't coach basketball. But he'd have to hire a legit GM and he'd have
yeah,
to hire really good recruiters around him. His name alone would help him just having the NBA name and stuff
mhm.
like Mike
I agree.
Malone. It's already worked out well for
Yeah.
him recruiting wise at North Carolina. So
Mhm.
I'd be really interested to see. Like obviously we want it to work out with Pope, but if that doesn't happen,
Yeah.
then Billy Donovan is right there waiting.
But if he has a 16 and 17 record for 1 year at UK, basically all fans would be like, let's run him out like he deserves to be fired.
Oh yeah, yeah, no doubt. But it does feel like Billy Donovan's one of the guys that like nowadays the all the coaches say like, man, why would I go to Kentucky? There's all the pressure in the world, and then like I have the same, not the exact same resources, but we can all pay the players.
Yeah,
Like it doesn't matter. But Billy Donovan feels like he'd be one of those guys that the place still means a lot to him. Like it's
yeah.
just like that would be kind of the reason that he would want that job over many other jobs.
Yeah, for sure. And then, like you mentioned, the crazy domino effect, like if Steve Kerr leaves, and uh, like we've mentioned before, the Florida head coach Todd Golden, he would go to Golden State, become the Warriors head coach, and then of course Billy Donovan becomes the Florida head coach, and then for Duke, John Shire leaves Duke to go to be the Chicago Bulls head coach. So it would be a crazy domino effect if that all were to happen.
And then Jay Lucas takes the Duke job. That's the
Yeah, Jay
final
Lucas.
domino. That
Yeah,
that would
Jay
really be
Lucas.
the final nail in the coffin of BBN because that's kind of the top
Yeah.
two that it seems like everybody's kind of all in
Yeah.
on. And I will say, one of my buddies, Samuel, he's been on the J train before he even coached a game at Miami. He
Mhm.
was like, "That is who I want one day as the Kentucky head coach." And um, I mean, he's kind of on the side of like he doesn't even think he'd take it because he kind of wants to just succeed at Miami and then take an NBA job. And it's
Yeah.
kind of like, but Jay to me is like just off following his assistant coaching career, it kind of just seems like he's the type of guy that like is always looking for the next step up. Like
Yeah.
he's just always trying to like step up. So that's why I think maybe you would take the job if you were to offer it to him. So who
Yeah.
knows?
Yeah, like Liam Cohen.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, Liam Cohen. Yeah, of course I'll be back multiple years, and then he just
Yeah.
jumps ship right away.
Yeah, for sure. But no, like I said, if you told me next year, like if things went terribly south, UK fires Mark Pope, if you told me between Jay Lucas and Billy Donovan, I would go with Jay Lucas. And just because Jay Lucas is actually, currently in college basketball, he understands the transfer portal, he understands NIL, and I think he would be more successful with, I would say, recruiting. He might not be more successful than coaching than Billy Donovan, but I feel like he would do a lot better with recruiting compared to Donovan just because Donovan's been out of the games for so long.
Yeah, I mean, look at what he's done already, getting good Surreal and Caden Lewis down there
Yeah.
to Miami in just his second offseason with him. So
Mhm.
it'd be unbelievable what he'd be able to do
Mhm.
with recruiting at Kentucky.
Yeah, for sure. And who knows, maybe he would become a terrible recruiter at UK because of the JMI deal.
Yeah. Then we would really know that it's JMI. If he
Yeah.
couldn't recruit at Kentucky, we would actually know.
Yeah, for sure. But the only other coach I would consider maybe for UK would be Luke Murray. Of course, he just became the Boston College head coach, so we'll see how he does in his first year being a head coach. But that's all I have for basketball. I do want to briefly talk about football real quick, just because the spring game happened the other day. It happened on Saturday. The blue team won 23 to 18 against white team, but I was very impressed, even though there wasn't a lot to show for, but I am very impressed with, the starting quarterback with Kenny Minchie. He transferred from Notre Dame to Kentucky, but very happy to see that he was doing well. He connected with the freshman with Kenny Darby as well. Uh, and then, of course, another player that was sticking out was Martellus Carter Jr. He's basically been making everything happen since he's transitioned more into being a running back this year compared to being a safety last year. So it looks like he's probably going to be transitioning more into being a running back, sadly, even though he was a four-star safety in the state of Kentucky coming from Paducah. So it's very interesting to see that he transitioned from being a safety to basically, I guarantee he's going to be a running back this upcoming year just because, you've got your running backs trying to come back from their injuries, making sure they're fully healthy for the fall season, for the season coming up. So, like I said, it will be very interesting to see, what Martellus Carr Jr. does along with the rest of the team.
Yeah, no doubt. It feels like Martellus Carter is. I mean, it's impressive from his standpoint because if you're so good, you can completely switch sides of the ball and still be extremely effective, which is what all the reports put out. And then from what we've seen, he's done a great job, kind of making his transition to a running back role. So, like you mentioned, with Barnes and Baxter going through injury stuff already, it's pretty safe to go ahead and like make sure that you have a couple different guys back there
Mhm.
in your backfield. So that's pretty exciting just to kind of like hear continuous reports of like this guy's killing it. But then Kenny Minchie, like you said, he's just like every single first time somebody sees him, they're like, this guy right here, this guy, he's that dude. And then in this instance, it was kind of like him showing his legs a little bit. Like that was kind of
Yeah.
one of the things that people took away from the spring game. Like he can throw everything on a rope. He can throw it through a car wash without getting it wet. He can do all these different things, but then he also has the legs that I don't think people really expected to see out of him. So,
Mhm.
yeah, out of those two guys, it seems like that was a big time takeaway from the spring game. Is those two guys are exceeding expectations pretty early.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, I'm not going to be too nervous about the offense. I believe it's going to be successful. I'll be definitely a little bit worried about the running back room, just trying to make sure everybody's healthy. But I think, our QB play is going to be very successful under Kenny Minchie. I think he's going to be probably the best quarterback since we've had since Will Levis. Of course, we've had other QBs that were supposed to have a lot of hype, but it just didn't pan out with, of course, Devin Leary and, of course, Brock Vandagriff. Zach Calzada, he wasn't supposed to be a dark horse for the Heisman, though, but there were talks about, Brock Vandagriff and Devin Leary being like possible, dark horses for the Heisman. Sadly, that did not happen, and like we wish them the best with what they're doing. I know Leary got cut from the Ravens. I don't know if he's still on an NFL team or not, but there's that. And then, of course, Vandagriff retired from the game of football after his one season in Lexington.
Yeah, and then Calzada getting his money up. So
Yeah,
yeah, best of luck to those guys. But it's Heisman season, so I'm
yeah,
all in for it.
mhm.
I can't wait to see him sling it. Like you said, we were both out of town, so it's unfortunate we couldn't get at the spring game, and there's obviously limited stuff that you can actually see from it. But from everything we've seen, it's been pretty awesome. And the
Yeah,
one thing that all eyes point on, and the guy that gets his name on the front of the newspaper every time is your quarterback. And now that we have a really solid one that
mhm.
Will Stein is extremely pleased with and stuff, it's awesome to see because it's like that's not that that's like your one worry, but it's like you said, with when your quarterback's not great. I know it's built from the trenches out, but when your quarterback's not great, you can't really do anything because like
Yeah,
if teams don't necessarily respect your run game, they can load the or when they don't respect your pass game, they can load the box. So like
yeah,
now we're in a situation where our running back room's getting a little banged up and everything. Now that he has, you can see Kenny Minchie's got wheels and he can also sling it and throw it on a rope. So I'm very excited about
yeah.
Kenny Minchie.
Yeah, and I'm just a little bit nervous about the defensive side of the ball. Of course, like our safeties, D line, they'll be perfectly fine, but more nervous about our linebackers and cornerbacks just because they are, young and still a little bit inexperienced. But I do think, this year's team can be successful. Uh, Real quick, we can do two things and then we'll wrap up the podcast. But two quick questions. Do you think Kenny Minchie will throw the ball at least for one game, 50 times or more?
50?
Yeah.
I would say no.
No.
Uh, I don't know. Maybe if there's a game that we end up getting down and it's like we've just got to end up
Yeah.
maybe like it's in reaching distance to be able to come back. I don't know. Did Dante Moore throw like 50 plus one game? 50 is a lot.
Yeah, I feel like
So that,
50 is a lot, but I heard that number like, like could he throw 50 or more passes in a game?
yeah, 50 is that's a lot of
Yeah.
passing. Dante Moore's most last year was 39. He did it twice. I'll say no, but
No.
it wouldn't necessarily be the most shocking thing in the world if we got to that point. But
Yeah.
especially with what the running back room is going through already. Like we said, hopefully Martellus Carter kind of steps
Yeah.
up and does really well for us. But um, yeah, with the running back room being a little banged up, then maybe there is a world where we end up throwing it
Yeah.
just 50 plus times.
Yeah, that's the only way I see it is if the running back room is really banged up and he just has to, continue to throw the ball. I think the most we'll see is probably 40 or 45 from him, but I do definitely see a world where he's throwing the ball at least 30 times a game, though.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Yeah, I'm trying to go back to Dylan Gabriel, who is definitely more of a passer overall. He threw it 49 times in a game and 41 in another, 41 two other times. So
Yeah,
maybe that's
maybe.
probably a good number. Maybe if you did like an over under of like 43 and a half or like
43.
45 and a half or something, then that would be a little up in the air. But I don't know if we get to 50. That'd be a
Yeah,
lot of
get to
passes.
50. Yeah, we'll just see what happens, but I don't think he'll throw 50 passes in one game unless we go into overtime and then he just like slings the ball, like if we go into overtime that could potentially happen. Like it would have to be probably like a double or triple overtime though.
Yeah, we'd have
Yeah.
to be playing a lot of football
Yeah.
that night.
Yeah, and then the other question I have, we'll wrap up this podcast from here. The over under right now, and we can talk about it more come football season, but over under right now is set on two different betting websites. It's 4.5 wins for Kentucky. I have the over on that. Right now, I think UK can get to 6 wins this upcoming year. Like I have the confidence under Will Stein. I could be completely wrong, but I know they have a tough schedule this upcoming year, but I do think they can get the over with the 4.5 wins, and I think they can actually get to 6 wins this upcoming year.
Do you already have your way too early like what games we're gonna win?
I do
Because
not.
the 10 game SEC or the 9 game SEC and then Louisville, man. it's so difficult.
I don't have I don't have the 6 wins exactly, but I have looked at the schedule multiple times and I'm thinking to myself, the best we can do is like 9-3. The worst we could do is 3-9, but I do think we can get to the 6 wins.
Yeah. So I mean, that's it's obviously beating Youngstown State and South Alabama.
Yeah,
Other than that, the most reasonable ones I would say is like at South Carolina.
yeah,
Um, man,
yeah.
Vanderbilt, I guess, even though in the recent years that hasn't been a gimme.
Nope.
Florida's at home late in the year, so that's exciting. We get them in the cold. Man, that's tough.
Yeah.
I'll go. You said it's 4.5, right?
Yeah, 4.5.
I'll go over. I'll
Yeah.
go over. I think we at least get to 5-7, and I feel like the staff and this team is too good to not go bowling. So I think we should probably get to 6-6. If I had to like place my actual wins way too early, it'd be the two Youngstown State, South Alabama, and I'd say like at South Carolina, Vanderbilt. So that gets you to four. Florida at home, and then like at Mizzou, maybe even the Louisville game you get.
Yeah.
But I think they definitely get over 4.5.
Yeah, I sure hope so. If they don't get over 4.5 wins, I feel like it would be a
Fire
very
Wilstein.
yeah, by Wilstein, a very disappointing year for Wilstein in year one. I just feel like you have to at least get to 5 wins because you fired Mark Stoops because he only got to 5 wins this past year. Of course, it wasn't just because of the 5 wins. It was because they were terrible the year before, 4-8, and then they just kept slipping and slipping, 7-6, 7-6. Like after they went 10-3.
Yeah, no, it would definitely be a little disappointing to see that like right away.
Mhm.
But man, he's coming into the toughest schedule.
Yeah.
Like it's just impossible to kind of go and expect like an incredible year
Mhm.
the 9-3. It's almost
Mhm.
insane, but that's definitely I would agree like the best possible scenario.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think there's a legit world where you get to a bowl game right away in year one, and not that the schedule's gonna get easier in years
Yeah.
ahead, but like I don't know, some of these jobs and stuff like that, like they're not gonna like last super long. Like you're kind of
Hmm.
maybe you're kind of the nail in the coffin of a couple of jobs, like with Brent Venables and uh and Kalen DeBoer and stuff. Like
Yeah.
those guys are not necessarily in the hot seat, but they're like, people are worried about them within their
Yeah.
program. So maybe you can kind of get one of those and steal those type wins, but
Yeah.
who knows?
Yeah, it would be insane if you're able to upset Alabama at home. I feel like if you do that, like basically every fan is going to rush that field. No questions asked.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I don't know where Alabama's gonna be ranked preseason, but it's just the logo that you're
Yeah.
like, yeah,
It,
we're gonna be we'll be going on that field tonight.
yeah, for sure. But do you have anything else you want to say before we wrap up the podcast?
Well, I guess we could just mention because we haven't. There's been a few that have gone elsewhere since we talked last. You want to mention just the names of all the transfers out where they ended up going?
Yeah, we can briefly mention that. I'll pull that up. I got it wrong in the last podcast where I said Mo Diabate was transferring to St. John's. I read it wrong that St. John's was interested in him, but he actually ended up going to LSU. But let's get into it. Denzel Aberdeen, he's transferring to Florida if he gets eligible. Jasper Johnson, he's going to Oregon. For his sophomore year, Andrea Yelovich to Ohio State. Trent Noah's returning. Brandon Garrison, he's going to Alabama, which is very interesting. Jalen Lowe to Georgetown. Jaden Quaitance to the NBA draft. Braydon Hawthorne returning. Mo Diabate to LSU. Malachi Marino is expected to return, of course. And then, of course, Reese Potter is also expected to return. And then Colin Chandler went to BYU, if y'all don't know, too.
Yeah, so it's weird to see. I mean, it's always weird whenever you have guys that like were once in your program and then you see them elsewhere. But I mean, obviously in the transfer portal area, you kind of see that a lot now. But it's it's crazy now at this point. Like the Andrea Yelovich and Mo Diabate were kind of like pushed out. Now in hindsight, we're kind of like, well, those would be kind of nice to have now because we kind of in a tough spot with our forwards. But I will
Yeah.
say about those two guys in particular, great messages left behind. Like
Yeah.
I think we talked in the last one about Andrea Yelovich's, but
Mhm.
Modi Abate left behind a great message and stuff. And but I will say he did the one thing that always it's like a pet peeve of mine.
The Big
The
Blue
BBN
Nation
Nation.
Nation.
It's
Yeah.
just yeah, you just see that and I'm like, oh gosh, that's just the Big Boy Nation. It's just it's
Yeah.
the best. But Yeah, it's weird. I guess Mo Diabate is just an SEC guy. He goes Bama, Kentucky, LSU. Even though I was with you, I thought he was going to be a Johnny and go up there because
Yeah.
that would have made a ton of sense to go home for your final run and go play for Ricky P. But that one's interesting. Going
Yeah.
to LSU now, he's the only player on the team, so that's
Yep.
pretty exciting for him.
And hey, just speaking of BBN Nation, it's also like the SEC when people are saying SEC conference, you're saying conference twice, you know?
Yeah. It's just those small pet peeves that some of us that are online too much just end up catching on to, and we're like, "Gosh, man, here it is again."
Yeah.
But yeah, the Jasper Johnson one is interesting. The Oregon,
Yeah.
I don't know because they've been going down. Like the Dana Altman era seems like it's maybe ending poorly.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens there with Jasper Johnson. It'd be funny if Stokes ended up going there, and then there's just Jasper Johnson, Tyron Stokes duo, and we're
Yeah.
like, what do we even think here?
Yeah, it would be insane if Tyron Stokes does go to Oregon. Of course, he posted on his Instagram story the other day, soon, with the caption, so soon he'll announce his commitment. And he basically also implied that, hey, don't leave Oregon off the list. And real quick, if he does go to Oregon, like, that's just crazy because, like, everybody thought he would go to Kentucky, but it must be like, if he goes to Oregon, he must really not like Mark Pope, I feel like.
Yeah, that would probably be the worst look of all because it's like Kansas you can understand because like he's probably just he's always had a good relationship with the staff, whatever.
Mhm.
Kansas is Kansas, like it's one of the top brands in the sport,
Yeah.
and like yeah, Bill Self's a Hall of Fame two-time national champion. Like it would make sense. You're like
Yeah.
ah, that just stinks. But then if he goes to Oregon, it's like Nike really made sure he went to a Nike school, but he like didn't like Kentucky so much
Yeah.
that he was willing to go play for Dana Altman. Like
Yeah.
it's just.
That would be insane.
Yeah, that would be an absolutely terrible look
Yeah.
overall.
Well, hopefully that doesn't happen. Like, worst case scenario, I would rather have Stokes at Kansas over Oregon and Kentucky. I just don't want him to go to another Nike school. I'd rather him go to an Adidas school. I get it, but I really don't want him to go to another Nike school other than Kentucky.
See, I'm honestly in the boat that I'd probably rather see him go to Oregon than Kansas because I
Sure.
just I don't hate Kansas by any means. They're definitely like towards the. I mean, it's definitely Duke is out of the blue bloods that I hate the most, and then probably UConn, and then I don't really know between North Carolina and Kansas, but like he's going to be good. So I don't want to see him go to a place like Kansas that we're competing for in the all-time wins and stuff. Like I'd rather him just go to Oregon where it's not really going to hurt us.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just Kansas, it would just I don't want to see it because they already got
Yeah.
TK. If they get like the other Kentucky kid that we were supposed to have,
Hmm.
I'd be like, dang man, they lockered us for multiple guys.
Yeah. I hear you completely, but it'll definitely be interesting to see what happens with the UK's basketball roster. Of course, we'll keep you all up to date on what happens, but do you have anything else you want to add? And then we'll wrap it up.
I mean, we don't have to talk about them at all. We can talk about them in the next one after stuff comes out. But Justin McBride and Gabe Dons on
Yeah.
campus tomorrow, I think.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see if UK can land any of them. Like you were mentioning, Gabe Dines, like it would be, I would say he would be more towards the end of the bench as well. And then Justin McBride, he could eventually be like the starting four or a backup four for sure.
Yeah, I would like obviously the preference would be that he's your backup four, but he's a capable shooter as a four man, and maybe at this point he ends up being a starting four. I
Yeah,
don't think that would be ideal, but 40% 3-point shooter as a four that can play physical as well. So
yeah,
I wouldn't be opposed.
yeah, for sure. I agree with you with McBride being the backup four if we can't get him to be that.
Yeah, no doubt. I think it'd be an
Yeah.
awesome backup pickup.
For sure, but we appreciate y'all watching on YouTube and of course listening on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. But this is Chris Beatsmore and
And Cameron Waddle.
signing out. Have a great week, everybody.